Dun dun dun. Book 2 of
Book
the
2.
Covenant
Of Steel.
of Steel.
Wow, I forgot it for a second there too. Is it the Covenant of something?
This book has like a lot of setup, a lot of things that kind of seem like Anthony's kind of pushing towards a big climax in the third book. We see Evadine kind of go a little crazy. We see a lot of change in Alwyn as far as his perspective on for the religion, what the scourge is, and just a lot of stuff happens. So join us for book 2. There. There's your intro.
Lovely, lovely.
So this book took a different turn than I was expecting. I was expecting this to go right into Evadine gathering an army and going against King Thomas, but that does not happen.
Yeah, it almost goes the opposite.
Yeah, because
She joins him.
Because for some reason, Evadine's determined, like she just is still determined to be loyal to King Thomas, even though we do learn in this book that King Thomas is not actually like the legitimate blood king. He's his champion's son.
Which is really weird if you ask me.
Which is part of what Silda's testament is. Because in the first book, it kept alluding that if this testament gets out, it could spark war. And you're kind of like, why? But now we know why, because it says that King Thomas is illegitimate. But we also learn in this book that the Pretender is illegitimate.
Yeah.
So.
And royal blood is so important.
Yeah, so neither of them are by the standards of you have to have the blood relation to some dead dude to be king. And then neither of them qualify. But
And yeah, they're the ones fighting over the dang crown.
yeah.
It's like, okay.
But yeah, some good, interesting things happen. I think part 1 is kind of all about a castle called Wyvern Castle. And essentially, King Thomas is, again, just trying to get rid of Evadine, essentially. But in order, so he wants Evadine to go. He's like, go defend this castle. And she's all like, y'all got to acknowledge that I'm a risen martyr. And he's like, hey.
Yeah.
So they go to like the religious capital, and there's like all this drama and all this crap.
Yeah, they don't want to acknowledge her as a risen martyr.
Yes.
It's blasphemous.
Yeah, and then they make it to the castle. It's like this terrible position, and they're in this duchy that is like on the brink of not wanting anything to do with being united with King Thomas, and they have like this different view of the covenant, and all these things happen. Blah, 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 blah. They come under siege, like really badly. There's like, I think they said like 20,000 troops come and surround.
Something massive like that, yeah.
And they surround this castle, and there's only like a few hundred of the Covenant Company, and they're like,
we're gonna die.
But they're able to hold out for actually quite a while.
Yeah.
There's some interesting parts of siege warfare that, again, I think Anthony made very realistic, which is that it's very hard to assault a well-defended area, even if that well-defended area only has a few people and you have hundreds of more people than they do, because you have to you run towards this defended place while under arrow fire and crossbow fire, and
They do other things too, don't they? Oh yeah, oil.
They're dumping oil and all sorts of stuff, and it seems pretty terrible.
Indeed. I've been burned before, just like little messes. Ow. That was like it. And I hated it because I could feel it for days or whatever.
Yeah.
You can imagine freaking oil just
Yeah,
just give me a crossbow bolt to the face.
Yeah, especially because the oil's hot, and then they throw a torch on it to light it on fire.
So screw that crap.
Yeah, it sounds pretty awful. I'm pretty sure you just go crazy and probably just I don't even know. It's instantly go mad with pain and just scream and die. I don't know.
There was a few things in the beginning of this that got my mind rolling.
What?
First of all, I was super curious how I'm interested to see. We see something in this book, but I was intrigued to know why Alwyn is such a legend in the future. Because I guess I kind of get the same feeling you were getting in the last book. What has he done? He wrote some words and killed a few people. Now he's a legend.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what he does, how he rises to this legend status.
So the way he's been describing things, because when he talked about when Evadine was ascending the steps to the great chapel, he's like, now you've probably seen paintings of this, but I was actually there. So it almost seems like he's writing this is the truth of Evadine. And I know because I was there. Like,
that's kind of what it feels like.
I wonder if
definitely.
it's more like that more than he's like he already does have quite a big reputation, mainly because of his association with Evadine. It almost seems more like that to me. Like, it's like a big, like, tell-all. like this is the truth of what happened. But,
right. Yeah, there was one other thing that I predicted in the beginning of this book that I wrote down. I wish I could prove it because I'm such an amazing reader. I noticed that someone referred to Alwyn as Sir Alwyn. So I was like, oh, does he get knighted and becomes a knight? Spoiler, he does.
He does. We also get like crazy looks into magic in this world because there's some aspect, some clerical person that really hates Alwyn. I forget his name. But it turns out that this dude has lived for like hundreds of years. And the Sack Witch has been alive for hundreds of years. And there's this other person that's been alive for hundreds of years. And this person has like a power to like create dreams. And he sends these dreams to Alwyn to make him think he's having visions of Urkel to warn him of stuff. And
that was like the biggest slap in the face for me.
Yeah, because like the whole book, it seems like, wow, he's having these visions. Like, what's happening with these visions? Like, they're telling him to do stuff. Like, they help save Evadine from assassins, and they show him a certain person is dead when no one else knows that person's dead, and it's like turns out to be true. And so it's like, wow, these visions are like real.
Yeah.
But then this dude's like, I was just trying to get the Sack Witch's attention because reasons, and
he's like infatuated with her.
Yeah. But we'll get more into that because as the siege is going on, it goes on for a while. It seems like a few months.
I want to say it did, because I swear there was a part in there that's like, oh, the weeks turned into months or something like that.
Yeah, because like it takes so it's Duke Ralgarth that they're fighting against, right? Ralgarth, or is that his brother? That's their last name, so that's that they share their last name. Ralgarth.
One of the Ralgarth
has to build like this huge siege weapon, which is basically this giant battering ram. And then it takes them forever to batter. They batter through the wall instead of through the gate, which is I'm used to seeing battering rams do. But
that surprised me. You'd think the gate would be easier, but I guess they didn't want to funnel or something.
They lit the beacons of Minas Tirith.
I didn't think of that at all when they lit. No,
I totally did. I was like,
yeah, seriously, like you can't light beacons without being like, you took that from Lord of the Rings.
Totally did. Because they're about to be overrun, but then King Thomas's sister comes, and like there's like this massive rout of the Ralgarth's army. Some things of note during this part one is Evadine seems like right on the edge of madness. Like she just seems full on crazy and in believing that she is like resurrected and she is like this living martyr, which is like a huge deal, and she has like all this authority, and it gives her like this almost irrational confidence in the things that she does. Like she's like really, like, because of the visions she's having, she's really, what's the word with her life? Like, it's not careful or cautious. Like, several times she, like, rides out almost by herself against the army to do sallies and stuff. And they, scramble to keep up with her.
I feel like there was 2 instances where that happened. And, like, Willem and Alwyn were like, hurry, get people together, we're going to go help her. And whatever, like, freaking out because she was just, like, riding out to meet 20,000 people by herself. Like, fear my sword.
So there's that, and then Alwyn battling the guilt of being like, it wasn't the Servile, it was, like, a Kareth witch. So,
and I wonder if one of the part of the reason why he didn't tell her is because if she was so mad when the Sack Witch healed Brewer, how mad would she be when the Sack Witch healed her? She'd be like,
right, and like the longer Alwyn waits to say anything, like the worse it's going to be. Especially at this point where she has literally like thousands of followers.
Seriously.
And people across the entire kingdom think, like, just want to worship her.
Yeah.
And like she believes it herself. And she's like full on convinced. And so it's like,
yeah.
I don't really think there's any. Really
they have so much belief in her. There's people who are like join her army who are like sick and old, and they end up dying on the march to wherever they're going.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, I'd be like, I'm sick, I'm going home.
Right, seriously, that's kind of part one in a nutshell.
Yes, they do. They successfully defend and stick it to King Thomas.
Yeah, but then his sister's like, we no longer need this castle. Onward to Highsall, which is the capital of this duchy.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but I really like that they went from the besieged to the siegers.
Yeah. Yeah, full on. Like, totally switched.
Yeah.
And then they had the problems from the other side of the thing where they're like, their siege equipment's getting sabotaged. And like, all sorts of crap.
Oh, it was a quick in part 1. I had more of a reason to believe that Alwyn became a knight, because it talks several times in this where he gets command to people and he like, ooh, I like this. This command is good.
Yeah.
So it's like, are they getting us ready? Like,
it's true, because during the siege, one of the main captains of the Covenant Company gets wounded, and Alwyn kind of takes over, just instinctively, and then Evadine's like,
you did really good.
You're a captain now, and he's all like, damn it.
Yeah, but then he's like, actually, I kind of like this. But like, I was totally thinking like, oh, maybe Anthony is getting us geared up to see Alwyn as like a bigger leader role, and I was right again.
Yeah, definitely seems to have a talent for it.
Oh, but the siege is awful, like every other battle Alwyn has.
Yes.
You don't like it.
They are able to build, I think, with their trebuchets or catapults or something. And they're kind of just pounding the walls. And they create a couple breaches. But yeah, the actual battle itself is pretty intense.
But man, there's something about these battles that I'm like glued to the page.
Yeah. But Alwyn does be able to come with a good idea to kind of stave off the worst of it, as he makes like these big, huge wooden shields for everyone to carry, and they kind of lock together when they're going through the gap, so they hard to hit with arrows, and the oil kind of just splashes around them.
Lucky for them, for crap's sake.
Yeah,
that dang oil.
And they're able to make it through a breach, and the champion, who has been like the whole time Sir Elbert, has been like this big figure, like, oh, the king's champion is like undefeatable. He can't get through his breach, and Evadine has to go save his butt. But
are you really that good? It was definitely one of those moments where I was like, oh, she actually is like the anointed lady, because she had to go save this big baddie knight.
Yeah.
So I think that was just the fuel to her fire some more.
Yeah, seriously.
So how did the siege end? Like they
make the 2 breaches, and they're able to get in, and they're like, quick to the main castle.
Oh, okay. Now you just say it's come back to me.
Yeah. And after getting there, they discover quite the thing.
It's like super odd. I remember it was being super odd because they finally break through, and then it's like they're like sitting here ready. Like, wait a minute, where's everyone?
Yeah, they're like, there's people on the walls, but like once you get into the city, the resistance pretty much evaporates.
Yeah,
there's still like a few archers here and there, but I mean, other than that, it's not the street-to-street brawl that they thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
but they make it all the way to the keep, and they discover that everyone there killed themselves.
I don't remember. They didn't do it knowingly, though, did they?
I think a lot of them. I think they did.
Was it just the kids who didn't know?
I think the kids didn't know. One of the kids survived.
All right.
Because she said that she drank the drink and was like, that nasty, and then didn't drink all of it, and then just felt a little sick but didn't die, and they were able to save her.
Right. But anyway, going back a step. What's her name? I forgot. Lorraine or something? It wasn't Lorraine.
No, I don't remember what the freaking name was.
Right name.
The Duke's wife.
Yeah, that's what it is. But anyway, yeah, the Duke's wife. Either, I can't imagine she told everyone, like, or maybe she did convince everyone to kill themselves to drink this poisonous wine, because it wasn't just her. Because it was like
it was the guards.
It was the guards and everything. That was part of the weird thing that like Alwyn and everyone was running to. Is like, oh, there's a dead guard, but we didn't kill him.
Yeah.
Well, he dead. And then they go to
It was literally everyone in the keep. So it wasn't like the whole city. It was just everyone in the keep. I had to fidget. I don't know what it is.
But how did the chase after Rulgarth start?
So they're kind of there for a while, and then Rulgarth he wasn't in the city Hysal. He was out and about because when he was routed and part of their thing, part of the siege of Wilvern, whatever the crap is called. He kind of went to the countryside, and he kind of harried supply lines and did a bunch of stuff, and then they went after him and dispersed his troops, and then they sacked the city, and then the king's sister was like, his sister was like, go get him. And so Evadine and the Covenant Company start going after Rulgarth.
But it ends up not being all of them, right? I thought it was just like Evadine.
So the whole company like looks for him, but then they finally get a good lead, and he's up at this place, And they go up to this place, and it turns out he's not there anymore. And they're like, oh, he went through this obscure pass through the mountains. And then that's when it's Evadine, Alwyn, Sir Albert, and like...
There's a guy named Fletchman. I know that.
Fletchman, and then a few
more.
Oh,
and they had that another guy there, Chops, who was like leading them through here.
Yeah.
That's right.
Chops was part of Ralgarth's band of now outlaws, but Evadine offered a reward, and he decided to betray them for the reward. So he leads them to the pass, where they do catch up to Ralgarth, and Alwyn's all like, fight me like a man, you bitch.
Yeah.
But then, what's his name? Chops. He feels all guilty because he killed his brother in order to escape Ralgarth's band to collect the reward. So Ralgarth makes him feel all guilty, so he screams and causes an avalanche.
Yeah. And actually, just before this, I really hated this because I thought the guy who was with him, Fletchman, I think Fletchman died like a totally preventable death because it's like, okay, Chops betrayed his people, his allies for this, like, you shouldn't trust him. And so when they finally catch up to Ralgarth, like, Alwyn goes after him, and then Fletchman's like sitting there with the bow or whatever, and no one is watching Chops. And then Chops just comes up behind and kills Fletchman. I was like, okay, seriously? You should have been pointing the bow at him or something.
I think it's especially because Alwyn didn't wait for Sir Albert and Evadine to catch up to where they were.
Yeah.
So it was literally just those three.
And it's just like, and I think, so they're at, we learn later, so Ralgarth is with another guy who actually turns out to be his nephew.
Yeah. And
so there's two against those three, but then Chops betrays the people. And
he kills Fletchman, screams, causes an avalanche.
Yeah.
And the avalanche sweeps Alwyn and Ralgarth and his nephew.
I don't know how, this part made me laugh a little bit because I was like, okay, avalanches bury you. They don't just sweep you like a water or whatever.
Yeah, because he ended up at the bottom of some mountain covered up to his waist, but the rest of him was out, and I was kind of like...
I think Anthony Ryan needs to go watch Mulan.
Right. That's exactly how an avalanche is.
You need to be riding on a shield like Mushu in order to survive.
Yeah. But Alwyn then gets taken in by a Kareth tribe, but like barely. Like they hate him and make it obvious that they don't really want him around, and they're just going to let him stay until he heals enough to leave.
And wasn't it like the only reason that they let him stay is because they could sense he had some mark from the Sackwitch or something?
Yeah, because he mentioned her name and like their language is like Dairith or something like that.
Oh, I only know this because I would say I know a way to say it because I listened to part of the audiobook, but they call her the Dolish.
Dolish.
That's what that weird frick word is.
Yeah.
Dolish.
Because when he was caught in the snow, the Kareth dude was about to kill him, and he was like, Dolish! And he was like, and then he gets observed by the village elder. And this is when we learn that the Kareth, well, I think it's the exact moment, but the Kareth, a lot of them live like a super long time. Like this woman that treats him as like over 100 years old. And we learn later on that the Sackwitch is like way old.
Yeah.
Way old.
100 years old.
And then there's this other guy, I forget his name, but he's also like way old.
The dream guy or the other guy?
The other guy that comes
the
to talk to him.
Ethlish or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember what he was called, but
yeah. Again,
implying that there's some other kind of weird magic going on, which kind of seems like a theme from Bloodsong.
But I thought his time with the Kavith was super interesting. And I really
didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
It seemed too far-fetched to me.
No.
This is kind of where I like kind of disconnected from the book a little bit. Not like a ton. Like it was well written and it was like a good part. I just didn't like how he got there. Like the avalanche getting there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then just this whole thing, because Ralgarth shows up. Like Ralgarth is also discovered in his nephew. And they survived. And then Alwyn convinces Ralgarth, who thinks Alwyn killed his entire family, to train them how to fight. And I only using the logic of you get to beat me up every day.
Yeah, I thought that was funny, but it definitely seems a little ridiculous. I think he'd rather be like, I'm just gonna beat you until you're dead.
We do get a little foreshadowing because he's all like, it's at this point, dear reader, where you probably know where he became super integral to the Kareth people, Ralgarth. He like becomes like a sword master with them, and like I don't know if he doesn't really say what he does, but he like implies that he becomes very important to the Kareth people.
Yeah.
So,
which I hope we get to see more of that because I was still kind of like, wait a minute, Is it just because he becomes a sword master? Or what?
Or he gathers a Kirith army and comes back.
Yeah.
Because there are Kirith fighters, and they seem to be, like, way good fighters.
Yeah.
And then he also meets this girl, this huntress, who he thinks that she's in her like she's a teenager, but it turns out she's in her 40s. And so that's when we're like, holy crap, these Kirith people live a long time.
Yeah. She looks super young, and she's, middle-aged.
Yeah.
But I was excited about this section just because I already had the idea thinking with what was that?
I don't know. Some grossed me out.
It's just tape.
Like the way it peeled off my phone, I was like, sick.
Why don't we just? I like this section because with the first part where they were in the siege and then they go take out Highsall, you think like Alwyn's actually a good fighter now. Like he's been this whole time with Evadine, he's been trained like every day with Willem, but then he meets Rolgarth and finds out that actually Willem is not a very good fighter, and Alwyn is not. He gets trashed. Like if Chops wouldn't have called down the avalanche, Rolgarth would have killed Alwyn easily.
He's like no sweat even broken at all.
I don't.
Rolgarth, when he's training him, is like seriously injured and can like barely move. And he makes it seem like he's fighting a kid.
Kicking Alwyn's butt.
Yeah, so he's definitely. I totally pictured like Lan.
Yeah.
Mandragoran or whatever crap his name. Dang it, I don't remember.
Wait, from what book?
Wheel of Time.
Oh, I don't remember his last name.
Like this total like master swordsman, like really old and really like stoic. That just knows a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he spends like, it seems like he's there for like 6 months or something.
Yeah, it seems like a long time.
Or something like that.
I don't think it was quite a year, but definitely at least 6 months.
It was a super long time. And then he trains every day with Rolgarth.
Yeah.
While he's there, and then he kind of hunts with I forget the crap her name is.
Lilat.
Yeah, Lilat. Hunts with her, all the while waiting for this mysterious figure to come and talk to him.
And somehow the Kaerith, this seems like more of the magic, or maybe I'm remembering wrong, but somehow the Kaerith knew he was coming, and that he wanted to talk to Alwyn. So I was like, okay.
Who knows how they
He sounds also scary as crap.
And then we get our next piece of magic, because the guy finally comes and takes Alwyn to like this weird cave where he gets to ask a question of the dead. And the question he asks takes him to a vision of the past where he sees like this great civilization, like towering skyscrapers, and it's devolving into chaos. Like there's like great mobs of people running around, and like buildings are collapsing and blowing up. And he meets this historian, and the historian's like, "Oh, you've come back. Are you come back to continue your history?" And we found out he's the author. The guy that Alwyn meet, he's the author of the book that Alwyn read. That was his life story. And it turns out that he's been there several times before as an older self, and now he's his younger self to relate his other side. And the guy's even like, "Oh yes, your older self said that your younger self was hard to work with." And I'm like, what the frick? Who is that?
Right.
Like, what is going on? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, like, also the story's like going this way. Also it's like,
seriously. And that's
like,
when
all of a sudden there's time travel.
Yeah, like I didn't understand that at all either. And it definitely was just like, what? So it was Alwyn who like was telling this guy his story for him to write in this book that the Sack Witch now has.
What is going on? Like, what is the story turned into? This is so confusing all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it made me go back to like, why the heck is Alwyn the center of all of this?
Yeah, it still hasn't explained why in like a,
because he hasn't done anything to make him think like, oh, we need to get this, and we need to record this, and Alwyn needs to be doing these things correctly so he can end up in the right place at the right time or whatever. So it makes me excited for the next book, because I'm like, better answer bring questions.
Yeah, it's the last book, so it's got to wrap up some things.
Yeah. So far, I am really happy that this is doing a lot better than The Shadow of What Was Lost. Like when with their time travel, was like my brain hurt, and
that was just stupid.
And this is so much better. We're still like, what's going on? But
yes,
it makes a lot more.
It's like a what's going on. I want to read the next book more than like what's going on. What is this? Why is this guy needs to pick a lane?
Seriously, holy cow! There's like 12 lanes in that book, and
anyway,
none of them make freaking sense.
But during this vision, apparently Alwyn's in like some weird vegetative state, and Lilat leads him for 3 days over the mountain passes. He's just kind of like,
yeah.
And then he comes back to the duchy where they had that big war and finds out that Evadine's following has grown to like crazy proportions, and there's like gangs of people wandering the land, brutally slaughtering people who won't like profess that she's a risen martyr.
Yeah,
like kids, women,
no one is
everyone
safe.
in like brutal ways.
Yeah,
like brutal,
horrid ways.
And then he goes through the whole duchy, and he's just like sees horror after horror after horror. And it's just making him mad. He's like, is Evadine really like letting this happen? Like, what the F? And then finally he confronts Evadine, and he's like, what the F? And she's all like, you think that I let that happen? Like, I have no control of those people. And he's all like, oh. But Evadine is like a mess. She seems like unhinged. And I'm like, this lady is crazy. And she's like, she also becomes like super attached and dependent on Alwyn. And she's like, you're not allowed to leave ever again, like ever. And like she gets really anxious whenever he like even like talks about leaving her presence for like the rest of the book. She's just like, no, stay bad. Just like, and then that's kind of how the reunion is the end of part 2.
Yes. One thing that we kind of didn't talk about, but in the last episode we were talking about how Alwyn received that head injury from the knight he fought to save Evadine.
I forgot about that part. Yeah,
and like so far, like almost more than half this book, he's been like struggling with it, and it really causes him a lot of pain.
He has to take like this really addictive pain drug to even deal with it.
And it was weird because like what did that? It was like the company's healer who gave him some stuff, and I was like,
and then he saw a royal healer that gave him more powerful stuff.
Yeah, and then someone from the Caerth even gave him something. Like, he had to wipe something smelly on his face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the Athlish or whatever healed him when he took him away. So, bye, dead in your head. Yeah. I think it was, it might have been the royal healer was like, I don't even know how this thing didn't kill you. You should be dead.
That's like, you're going to deal with this the rest of your life, and it will kill you. Like, you're not going to survive this injury.
But no, it's okay. The Athlish used his massive muscles to...
I forgot about that. He was like... He's like a terrorisman, like that sword strength.
Yeah. I want to see the Athlish in like a picture or something just to see what he looks like, because they talk about how he's like so friggin' massively muscled and huge and
but it's like they almost describe it as like grotesquely so.
Yeah.
So it's not like a bodybuilder. It's like they just...
I think it's like, bigger than a body. Have you seen... There's some people...
It's not like perfectly manicured, nice looking muscles. Like they're like just so big, it's like makes them all like deformed.
Maybe
because he mentioned that he spent years among the Oliver Range people, like traveling as like a freak show attraction.
Yeah. Do you remember the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Oh yeah. Do you think it's like Dr. Hyde?
Do you remember at the end of the movie, there's another guy who drinks all the serum, and he turns into that giant red dude. He's like got a super small arm, but then he's got like a massive shoulder, and then like a massive arm or whatever.
Oh, kind of rings a bell. Kind of like that. I'm probably exactly
like I'm like that. Like I was so friggin', because like even Dr. Hyde, he doesn't look like a bodybuilder because he's like a little out of proportion, but he's still like normal.
Yeah, like evenly proportioned.
Yeah. So like the Athlish is not. Anyway, all right, on to part 3. What happens in part 3? Lots of stuff.
I don't remember exactly what led to it, but Alwyn, like they want, like Evadine wants to form like a spy network where she wants to like.
Oh yeah, because she comes back and then Captain Swain is better, and he took over his people again.
She has Alwyn form another like second, like still in the Covenant Company, but like Squad 2 type thing.
Right,
and they're all scouts. Yeah. And so he sends them to this well-known bandit lady, and she gives her agreement that she'll help Evadine out and kind of provide information, but also provides cryptic information for Alwyn to go to this area in the Shavine forest. And he convinced Evadine to let him go, but he falls right into a trap. And this is when we discover that there's a third really old Caerth person who's been posing as an aspirant, and we've met several times in the story, that kind of hates Alwyn because he has the mark of the Sack Witch on him. Because this guy was being killed by someone many years ago, and the Sack Witch saved him and raised him. And then he was able to gain pretty much eternal life, and he's been trying to attract the Sack Witch's attention.
Wasn't like the whole story with those two, like he just got like addicted or something to doing what she wanted because like pleasing her or something like that.
Yeah, and then he like started like drifting away from it. So he thinks he's doing what she wants, but later she's all like, "That guy does not like. He hasn't done my will in a long time." And he's like, he has this power where we kind of already mentioned this, where he can give people dreams.
Yeah.
He can make it any dream, but he's like he prefers to give them nightmares. And so that's what he was doing to kind of manipulate Alwyn to do certain things and to bring Evadine to where she is. And
yeah, it was him who gave him the dream to save Evadine and showed a dead person. But it wasn't Urshel, it was this guy.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Urshel.
So that's something that's really interesting to me is it just really doesn't give you a ton of like what the magic is all about in this. And it's just something like, oh, this guy was saved by the Sack Witch. Now he is really old and he can give people dreams somehow. Like, that's all you get.
Yeah. Well, that's why they were trying to kill him, was because he could do that as a kid. And he kept giving people in his village nightmares.
Right. I mean, like, they knew he could do it, but I'm saying, like, we as the reader have no idea where this power comes from, how he does it. How did he get his power just from... Oh, no, he didn't get his power from the Sack Witch. We know that much, but, like...
Somehow he got, like, the long life. I don't know. They call it something. It's like some Kareth word for like life force. And they have a lot of it. If you have a lot of it, you can live for a long time. The next big conflict, kind of like we leave from one conflict to the next, and the next big
so that guy takes him captive.
Oh yeah, he takes him captive, and that's where he interrogates him, and it's kind of like, where is she? And he's trying to get to the Sack Witch, and he's like, if I torture you, maybe she'll come. But then Evadine saves the day, and she comes.
Yeah, Evadine can't stand him being gone, so she's like, we gotta go get him.
Yeah, she gets like this feeling that he's in trouble, so she comes and saves him, and she's all mad. She's like, you're never leaving, and then they have sex.
So weird.
All right.
I think he's just going for one in each book.
Yeah. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't even care anymore.
You don't even care.
But then we learn the king's sister comes and she's like, the Pretender's back and he's gathering an army. We need to go fight him. And we also learn that the Luminarchs are also forming their own army, and there's like all this weird stuff going on, and like we don't know what's going on. It doesn't really satisfy all of that quite yet. We just know they're building an army, but they don't really come into play quite yet. And this is what you're talking about earlier, where Evadine, just by walking through towns and villages, gathers massive followers, and old people and sick people follow her, and they're dying by the hundreds on the roadside.
The thing that added to that too is usually like the army will feed the people who joins, but they were like, we can't support you. If you come, you can come, but you got to figure it out yourself.
We're not going to give you anything. And they're like, we will do it.
Yeah, then they just all die, and they're like, oh, okay.
And then we have a second Pretenders battle, but it's much shorter because.
I think how this kind of I was thinking Alwyn like was trying to orchestrate like some sort of truce talk, but it was.
There was already like a conflict. The king went there, and the king got captured.
Yeah, so they were like, "We'll give you back King Thomas if you give you back the
daughter that survived.
The daughter that survived the poisoning."
Yeah, but then Urchel, and this is before Alwyn knew that they were false visions, gave Alwyn a vision that King Thomas was dead.
Yes, this was a while ago too. It was a while ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't like the night before this whole thing. No, it was like.
And so then Alwyn convinces. Sir Albert, who is the king's dad, but no one knows that, and his sister to do a parlay, and he's able to manipulate the conversation to get the Pretender and his people to admit that King Thomas is dead. And then Sir Albert loses it, and he attacks everyone. He goes like ham, and he like kills so many people.
Yeah, and like I think that this is like all super tense right now because like as they were leaving, I think it was just Alwyn who was like telling like, "Okay, you all need to get ready. We're gonna battle. We may be going to like parlay and stuff, but we're gonna be having a war here." And so he gets them all ready, and the Pretenders guys, they bring all of this like honor guard and crap. But yeah, what I loved is Sir Albert loses it and just massacres them all practically.
Yeah, he just like goes in there. I'm like, oh, he's gonna die. But then later, like Alwyn,
his sister, King Thomas's sister, also like lost it too.
Oh yeah, sorry, she jumped and like killed the.
I don't remember his name, but there was the guy who killed.
It was
King Thomas.
It was the survivor girl's uncle.
Oh, okay.
Because the Pretender survives. Alwyn captures him alive.
Right.
And takes his testament And then it turns out that the same guy that was manipulating Alwyn also manipulated the Pretender to go after the throne to create all this chaos. And then he also sees further chaos by saying that Evadine is serving the Malicite, which the Malicite is like the big evil thing that fights against the Seraphile. And further on, the Sackwitch confirms that there is a such thing as a Seraphile and the Malicite, and they're in constant conflict, but it's not as the Covenant says it. They're more like, she almost paints it like they're more like forces of nature, like good and evil type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the impression I got. I don't know if they use those words exactly, but...
Right, but that's the gist.
Yeah. So that's kind of how part 3 ends. It's like Evadine's like even more like unhinged and crazy, and she wants to just almost do this holy war, and she believes that everyone has to like believe in her and believe what she does in order to stave off the second scourge. We have King Thomas's nephew is crowned king, but the sister is going to reign and regent, and
which they were making it sound like it's not a good thing. Like they gotta work against her.
She also seems a little crazy. But that's kind of where we're at. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. But
I enjoyed this book a little bit more. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy The Pariah, but it felt kind of weird, and it felt like it took the entire book to kind of settle to where it was going to be. Because like he was an outlaw, then he was a prisoner, then he was a soldier, then he was an outlaw again. It's like, where's this going?
Yeah, I think so too. I think this definitely calmed down and got into a rhythm, and I think it was well written. There was a few parts where you already mentioned that I was kind of like, I don't really like that, but I think overall it was a good book. I look forward to the third one.
Yes, definitely. I have a prediction though, because I think that the biggest one of the weirdest things for me was just like Alwyn doesn't believe in like the Covenant. He's always been like, oh yeah, quoting stuff like this is true, but he's always in his mind, he's like, this is bullcrap.
And his vision of seeing the actual scourge kind of like solidifies that. He's like, the Covenant isn't 100% right, but like the things it's kind of teaching are right. So it's like kind of weird.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of getting at is like, even though he knows Evadine is not a risen martyr, he has that attachment to her, and I'm trying to figure out if it's like only because of the Sackwitch kind of tying them together, or if it's because of something more, or like why does he always follow her and crap. But I think I'm only saying this, I think, because the next book is called The Traitor. So I'm kind of thinking like, I think he is going to betray Evadine, and it's going to be about that. But I don't know how much. Maybe he's going to do it really quick in the beginning, or near the end he's going to be like, oh, you're actually false. Off with her head. Or something.
Something along those lines, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to the next book.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. These type of books are interesting for me because they because I can talk about the Stormlight Archive or any Brandon Sanderson book and be like, oh, they're so good, I love them. But like with Anthony Ryan, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, it's the best writing, it's so beautiful, it's the most amazing book. I'm not going to say that, but I'm like, it's a good book, yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. Like, it's well written, good story, interesting enough plot, interesting characters, but it's not the best book in the whole world.
Yeah. But I would still say I'm not going to go the other way either. I'm not going to be like, oh, this was the stupidest book.
Yeah, definitely read it. I would definitely recommend anyone read it.
I will say that about The Shadow of Lost. That was a stupid book.
Think about that. Don't even want to think about it. But anyway, thanks for joining us on this week of Into the Pages.
Indeed.
Next week we'll be talking about The Traitor.
Yeah, we're going to get into The Traitor and see what all sorts of craziness that's going to bring us. Man, I don't know. Have you seen the cover of it?
Yeah.
It looks insane.
Like fire everywhere.
Yeah, it looks like the second scourge is going to happen this one or something. It's just going to be madness, chaos everywhere.
Yeah, seriously.
But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be. I have high hopes that it's going to be a really good conclusion to this trilogy.
Yeah.
So it better be, or else Anthony's going to get a strongly worded tweet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
We'll see y'all next time.
It's over.